Buffy's had a sister the past 4 seasons that have been in every scene even though we hadn't seen her. I guess we're talking Buffy season 5. Hey there, welcome to another edition of the Sunday Scaries. I'm your host Mike, and I'm bringing you another Tuesday Terror as we review the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series. And tonight we're going to be talking about Buffy Season 5. Now, before I get started, please know there'll be some spoilers. I just can't talk about that in depth without being able to spoil some of the things that happen, but you've been warned. And before you can even start talking about this season, you have to know what was going on behind the scenes with production. And this was meant to be the last season at one point. And the writers wrote it in a way to where this could have been the conclusion of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it would have been great. I really do like the ending of this season. However, after they were in the middle of filming or at the end of filming, the series got picked up by a different network and got renewed and got 2 more seasons after this. But when you're watching this, it does feel like this is the conclusion of the whole series. Now, this season picks up where we left off, and you have Riley and Buffy dating, and there's this episode where Dracula comes, and it's a very normal episode and great portrayal of Dracula. The episode ends, and all of a sudden Buffy has a sister, and this sister is in all her memories from all the past seasons. She was in the mix of all the crazy stuff with the Master and the Mayor and all the other big bads, Angelus and Angel, and all those storylines, and the viewer is kind of like, what is going on? And it takes a few episodes to develop, but you just have this random sister named Dawn. A few episodes finally into this kind of weirdness as everything else is just going on like nothing's wrong, though you, the audience, know this sister, something's up with her because she has not been in the past 4 seasons. You know, it turns out that there's this horrible villain named Glory who's been trapped on Earth, and these monks were guarding a key, and they made the key into human form, creating Dawn, and they put her in the Slayer's life and manipulated all of the Slayer's memories and all her friends, her family, her mother. Her mother thinks this is her daughter because they wanted the Slayer to protect the key and protect her. And so that's the major plot going on in this entire season. Along the way, you know, you have Xander and Anya developing their relationship, and Anya's learning how to be human, and Xander's sort of teaching her, and it's a bit fun of a relationship to watch. Willow and Tara have really progressed in their relationship, and Willow's becoming more and more powerful with her witchcraft. You know, Giles is much more at home in this season. He's full on in the parenting watcher role with Buffy and helps with Dawn. And Giles even invests in a magic store and creates a back room where Buffy can train, full of equipment and all different things. And Spike is actually falling for Buffy and is developing these feelings for her and fantasies. And Harmony comes back to him actually briefly at one point, and he has Harmony pretend to be the Slayer and chase him around, and it's just hilarious. But all these relationships are developing, you know, and the one that's suffering the most, though, is actually Riley. Riley really feels like the rebound. He doesn't feel like Buffy prioritizes him. And, you know, he has this kind of inferiority complex, and he loses his, you know, superpowers and strength and different things because the government was operating on him, and there's a whole storyline. And so eventually they break up. And that's a really good thing for Buffy because this is really the first season since the first one where she doesn't have a romantic interest, and she gets to learn to just be single and on her own. Additionally, Buffy's mother actually sadly passes away in this season, and having this younger sister now that she's supposed to care for, Buffy also has to learn how to become an adult on top of being a Slayer and on top of trying to protect her new sister. And as this is going on, you're getting to know the big bad. And the big bad, again, is Glory. And what Glory actually is a god from a hell dimension who was getting too powerful, and the other gods in her dimension cast her out into the human world and put her in a human body. And she actually shares a body with an innocent man named Ben. And Ben is actually a doctor or in residency. And, you know, he's trying to live a normal life, but the two of them swap back and forth sharing the body, and he can't control it when she comes in, and she actually can't control it when he retakes over the body. But Glory is a fun villain because when she's got full control of her body and she's out making mischief, she has the sassy tone to her. You know, the first time she encounters Buffy, meets a monk and is trying to save him, and Glory's creeping up behind her and is like creeping like she's in a cartoon or something. And they start, and she goes, "Oh, cool, you have superpowers, can you fly?" And just picks Buffy up and throws her like she's nothing because you can't kill her. She is a god. And even though she's in human form and she's been banished to die once her human host body dies, while she's in the body and in control, she can't be harmed. And so this is one of the most daunting tasks Buffy ever had to encounter in any of the 7 seasons. And she's also mentally unstable. You know, one minute she's putting on dresses and trying to look pretty, and the next minute she's ripping somebody's heart out. She's got this creepy group of minions that look like monks but with kind of demon faces. And on top of this, there's this group of knights who are trying to find and kill the key in order to kill Glory, which they call her the Beast. And it's just this big group of madness. Now, how you feel about this season largely depends on how you feel about Dawn. And this season's a bit mixed, though I'd say more than half the fan base really enjoys this season. And a lot of people say this is the best one in the whole series, which, you know, I personally believe it's one of those seasons that's firing on all cylinders. And, you know, anyone that ranked it number 1, I would totally support and understand. And I can mix and match my favorite season, honestly, on any given day. So when I get to the rankings, we'll see where I'm at. This theme of making the key into this innocent girl who's completely pure, I think is actually ingenious, and giving Buffy a sister who's actually made out of her own blood. So she is her sister, even though some of these memories are not true and manipulated. And as Buffy finds out everything and it unfolds, she grows to really see the precious gift Dawn is. And I think that's a beautiful storyline. I do agree with some fans that Dawn can be a little obnoxious, and there is this kind of weird, she's like really weak for a 14-year-old girl and needs probably more protection and parenting than is really necessary that the show portrays her family doing. But I also think that's the point. You know, the monks wanted her to be dependent on the Slayer and the family. And even Buffy's mom, when she's sick and gets cancer in the season, she figures out that Dawn is not actually her daughter, but she also knows that somehow she still belongs to her and she's precious and they need to protect her. And I think there's something so beautiful just about trying to protect a complete innocent, and the idea of putting this key into something so pure. And the introduction of Dawn actually makes Buffy even more selfless than we've seen her already be in a lot of other seasons. In contrast, that's actually the opposite of another theme, which is Buffy and Riley's relationship. It is a relationship that's kind of out of pure use. When they met, you know, Buffy was on the mend from Angel, and she just needed some kind of good guy to be stable. And while I love Buffy, I think she's a great character, she does, you know, take him for granted. And granted, he gets a little crazy, gets into vampires wanting to bite him, and this kind of like emo, I want to be in pain, or like drug addiction kind of thing, but through vampire bite. She definitely did not treat him the best and did not prioritize him. And so even though I'm not a big fan of Riley, I'm like most Buffy fans, you know, he's just a little too vanilla for me. But I do see the use on her end, and, you know, I think she took him way too much for granted. On the flip side, you know, we get to start seeing Spike and Buffy's relationship sort of grow because, you know, Spike falls for Buffy and she starts to figure it out towards the end of the season. But that's another kind of relationship out of use. First of all, Spike, it's complete some kind of fantasy in his head. He's not necessarily really in love with her, at least not at this point in the show. And he even gets some guy to make a robot of Buffy, which actually ends up being hilarious. And he reprograms the Buffy to hate on all her friends and to say like Angel is lame and things like that. And of course, Buffy finds out and goes ballistic. But Robo Buffy is eventually used actually as a distraction in the finale, which is pretty cool. But separate from that, you know, Spike isn't really treating Buffy the best either. And, you know, when Buffy does figure out he likes her, she kind of uses it to her advantage and gets him to protect Dawn and, you know, fight Glory. And Spike does do some noble things, and I think he really does care for Dawn. He develops, you know, feelings for her too in a like older brother kind of way. And you can tell how tormented he is in the last episode when he fails at saving her in one scene. And going back to the innocent theme, there's another whole kind of interesting question you can raise is in the end of the show, Glory is going back and forth between Ben, and there's a scene where she is Ben again, and Giles has talked about in the past, people change once they kill an innocent, and Buffy has made it known she won't do it. Like, she will not kill her sister, even though there's this whole ritual going on, and if Dawn's blood starts to spill, that means Dawn's gonna have to die in order to stop the apocalypse. Giles knows Buffy won't kill an innocent, which includes Ben. And when Ben is injured, Giles actually suffocates him and kills him because he knows that Glory will come back and eventually hurt Buffy, even if they stop the apocalypse and kill all the friends and family. And it's sort of an interesting moment because he does something wrong in killing this innocent, even though it is to protect everyone. And he even makes a comment that, Buffy isn't like us, and referring to Giles. And so Giles kind of shows he's willing to do something immoral, even though it might be for a good cause in theory. And that's a really interesting side of Giles we have not seen. But it's a really powerful moment. And in fairness, Ben had made a deal with Glory and was willing to sacrifice Dawn. But it's a really intense moment. And then I know in the last season review, I talked about Willow and Tara after the whole Oz breakup, and she, discovers she is a lesbian and starts dating this girl who's also a witch. I also think there's an underlining attraction to Tara's magic and knowledge that a lot of fans don't talk about when they talk about their relationship. And I know there's so many things you can get into in analyzing the relationship and how it impacted the media and pop culture and all sorts of things. But, that addiction seed is planted there, and it's going to be a major issue in the next season. But Tara actually even calls Willow out on it and talks about how she's getting scared of what Willow might be able to do. And even though magic's been necessary to defeat evil, it's very clear Willow is starting to use it for more than just like defeating demons and work. She's really getting into it and becoming dependent on magic. And after Tara gets injured, she actually goes kind of crazy and actually tries to kill Glory and does this huge fight scene that almost gets her killed. She gets in her head too that she's so powerful, and she starts to become less fearful of situations. And in some ways, rightfully so, her magic does come in handy in the finale as well, and she's able to get Tara back. But, her magic also is getting her into a lot of trouble. Like I said, in next season, you're going to see how that becomes a really bad thing. And the final theme is Buffy not being willing to sacrifice an innocent, but sacrifice herself just for one person. And, she could have killed her sister to stop the apocalypse at the end, when her blood has already been spilled, and unfortunately Spike failed to get there in time to stop it. But she gives her a hug, she tells her she loves her, she talks about how she was made out of summer blood, and they're on top of this giant platform that was built to perform the ritual, and the portal's opened at the end, and it's kind of like a big diving board at a pool. And when she looks out, she sees the sun rising, and it's this whole theme of, she's been told death is her gift, right? And she thinks of it as a curse, like she's made to kill things. And what I think the first Slayer meant for Buffy to understand through saying death is her gift in multiple previous episodes was she could actually sacrifice her life to save people. And as she looks out, and she knows she can jump off this thing and kill herself, but stop the apocalypse, the sun is rising. And you see this moment of she's at peace, she's happy. I mean, she's literally said if she has to kill an innocent person, she doesn't want to live in that kind of world. She's not going to make those kind of choices. And she realizes she doesn't have to. She can sacrifice herself. And she just runs out there completely at peace and jumps off and sacrifices herself. And after her friends bury her, there's a tombstone saying save the world a lot. And, it's a beautiful goodbye, actually, and fits Buffy's personality well. There's something I find so awesome in that scene, and it would have been such a just way to end the show, but it also just it's one of those reminders of what an amazing character Buffy is and how selfless she is throughout this series. All right, let's get into rankings. And this is another season I got to give a 5 out of 5. There aren't a lot of filler episodes in this season that bore you. All of them are done at high quality for the most part. And I don't think this is a season where there's one dull episode. I really like them all. I think the overall plot is amazing. Gloria is such a fun villain. She's right up there with the mayor. There's a lot of fun side little mini demons that they have to fight. I love the whole dynamic of Ben, and I didn't mention too much, but Buffy even sort of starts pursuing Ben after Riley leaves and she doesn't know Ben is Glory and Glory is Ben, which is a joke in the show. I love the whole Knights chasing them too. It's just a great season. And I personally, even though I find Dawn a little annoying, I think in this season, above all of them, she works the best, and I really enjoy her character, and I appreciate the show went in such a bold direction. And as far as the fun meter goes, kind of for all the things I just said, it's a 5 out of 5 also. There's not one bad episode in this whole season, and it gets from everything to the really fun demon type episodes with good villains to just everyday trauma of like losing a parent and having to learn to be an adult. Just such a well done season and a ton of fun from start to finish. All right, but thanks for watching, and please tune in next Tuesday for season 6 review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And please subscribe and like if you haven't already, and leave a comment. I would love to know what you think of Glory in season 5. What a terrific villain, and if you disagree, just leave a comment. But with that said, all I know is at least I don't have to fight a hell god tomorrow, and I'm happy to be going to work.